All right. Wonderful. Well, welcome Friday evening. Great way to spend your evening. And if you've got a glass of wine or you're just relaxing, then go ahead and do that and just enjoy this. It's a privilege to be with you all. I've called this Facelift Friday. We're going to talk about actually how to get the benefits of what feels like a facelift without the surgery, which is always a good thing. But I want to go beyond the surface, right? Because we know that we can definitely do all sorts of things out there on the market that can polish it, can peel it, can fill it, you can freeze it, you can tighten it, right? But are we actually changing where skin is aging? And that's really what we want to talk about. About 3 years ago, I ran a 5-week session actually on skin health, and so taking a different approach to the notion of skincare. I'm sure every woman here has skincare products in their cabinet somewhere along the line, maybe way too many, but we all like to do things that do want to keep us looking as great as we can. But there's something much deeper than simply the skin side of it, so I want to run through this. I will say that I'm being pretty ambitious in picking from those 5 weeks some of the key factors that I can put together here tonight. So hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly. So let's actually talk about, and I'd love you in the chat if you're near a computer, to put a me in the chat column if you've ever felt entirely overwhelmed by all the products that are available on the market, or if you march up and down the lines at the shops to look at them, there's just so many there. Maybe you felt like you look at the results that they're showing on there and it feels sometimes like they're overpromised, or you've purchased things and you really haven't seen what you were hoping for. And certainly maybe you felt like you've really overspent on certain things. If that relates to you, just stick a me in there. I certainly know that I have just moved house, and I was kind of astonished as I was reorganizing my shelves as to how many products I have, because I don't think that I really buy lots of different products. So I'm sure we kind of purchase more than we necessarily realize. But yeah, a lot of you can feel. My system, as far as I can tell, is working. Sean, we've got other people who can say that they can hear the sound. So hopefully that is the case. I'm not playing any videos, so I won't be running on those kinds of things. So hopefully you can get this. It's interesting, when I was doing a bit of research out there, because I always love to do research when I'm doing these kinds of things to see what's around, is that you can actually purchase at this present moment $2,000 a jar costing $2,000 of La Prairie Platinum cream, $2,000. But I actually even found that Dior has a 50 ml product, which is $7,500 for 50 mils. Now, admittedly, that jar itself tends to look a bit like a work of art, but all the same, that's a huge amount of money. And how do we know that it's actually going to be of any benefit at all? So I think the biggest question is, most expensive products still basically have to work. And the biggest question that I want to ask this evening is, does our skin actually have the ability to respond to those products in the first place? Because maybe that's why we're not seeing the benefits. Most skincare conversations are very much around the typical things, right? The face, the wrinkles, the spots, the aging, sagging, and a whole myriad of questions around what kind of product do we put on next to combat any of that. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the skin is not just the face, right? It is the largest organ of the body. And so we've got a much bigger conversation, I believe, to talk about skincare through skin health, which I think is a very different approach to things. Now, while creams and lotions, for example, may offer some temporary solutions, some can actually obviously cause some risks and damage because they're not particularly healthy. So you do have to be careful. Not everything is an okay thing to use. However, if we're prioritizing our internal health, what we're really doing is unlocking the potential for transformation like the one that's depicted here. Now, that's not to say that a lot of people might still have some poor skin health or skin care programs going on. They're not cleaning their skin as well as they should, so they may end up with some of these challenges that we see as acne. But a lot of them are really much deeper pictures about the health of the body. So it's not merely a change in the skin, it's a profound journey that's really going to touch very much in the younger end of things. But I think for any woman, and our self-esteem in that process of how we feel that we look about ourselves. So I love the fact that as a practitioner, the skin is really the largest organ, but it tells us so much. It's a living feedback about our health, and your body is a dynamic being. It's going to change from day to day. There's a lot that you can learn about your own health by simply looking at your face, and it does provide us this feedback on the internal health system that we have going on. So in that last picture, you might have come to realize, if we go backwards here on that, and you look at where her issues were, that really my belief is that a lot of her issues were more around her stomach, her lungs, her large intestine, and her pelvic organs, and that wasn't really about skin cleaning itself. So we're going to cover skin health as a whole, how products work in foundationally, kind of the function of products, the basic idea, and what measures aging of the skin as opposed to skincare. So for those of you who don't know me, I know a lot of you on the call here do know who I am, Carolyn Hoffman. I'm a board certified naturopathic doctor. I'm also a digestive health specialist, so I love looking at the face from that perspective. I've got a bunch of things that I've done over time, because to me it's all ways of looking at how do we find the path that really targets what's going on for our own health. But I've spent over 25 years in this field and had a number of physical practices, and I currently have another one that I'm running in Charlottesville, Virginia at the moment. So I'm always searching for answers, and that's really what this reflects. So let's think about this. Pop in the chat for me. What is your number one skin health challenge? Is it the wrinkles that we can see from these pictures? Is it maybe the fine lines? Is it the unevenness of the skin? That's something I hear very often from people. Is it maybe the texture, the tone, all of the things that can bother us? But what's the kind of biggest, too much crap, as somebody says about our products there? Yeah, great. Right. Well, a lot of them have too much crap in them for sure. But what's your number one concern? What would it be that you really want to address if you've not got where you want to be with your skin health issue? I'd love to know what that is. So wrinkles and brown spots, yes, damage, preventing skin cancer. That's an interesting one. I've been reading some interesting studies coming out. So needing to be cautious about skin exposure and protecting it. Yes, for sure. Sagging, that loss. That's that, the collagen loss that we get actually, which starts in our teens and 20s, rather like a soggy mattress, right? We start getting the lumps and bumps as the underpinning begins to change. Upper and inner arms, crepiness, yeah, all of those things that I think we all feel the same. Puffiness around the eyes, I would say that whilst that can definitely be a skin issue, it very often is more of a reflection of kidney health. So look at your kidneys, because they're probably not doing what you need them to do if you've got very puffy eyes. But a lot of skincare will necessarily, can certainly support that. So let's talk about what's beneath the surface. I know we always hear the thing, right, beauty is skin deep, but let's go deeper than that and actually see what really supports the notion of great skin on the outside. Anyone who listens to me talk about this from a health perspective will know that I frequently say the wrinkles on the outside are a reflection of the wrinkles on the inside. And why is that? Because the wrinkles on the inside are happening to your organs, not just your skin, right? Skin is the largest organ, but it's happening to all our organs because it's to do with oxidative stress. And a lot of that becomes very visible on the outside when it accumulates too much. The reason I say skin is important is because it's also an emergency exit point. Right? In our field, we have this little synonym there we call bowels, urine, liver, lungs, and skin, bulls. That's our way of remembering what are the primary exit points for the human body to excrete the junk in the cells, which should be coming out on a regular basis. Bad stuff out, good stuff in. That's where we want to get the nutrients into the skin. But that doesn't happen. And basically what happens is that when every other exit is already overloaded, the last direction that the body has to kick the junk out is through the skin. And so that's why we often will see these things on the skin that really are a reflection of the fact that we need to detoxify. We need to get our lymphatic system moving in particular. We need to drink more. We need to breathe more. Right? In fact, 80% of the toxins within the lungs are sitting in the bottom section. And for women, we're really bad at breathing from that deeper part of the lung. We love to be an upper chest breather, and we're really not moving things. So sitting at the traffic lights when you're busy, getting the lymphatic system working, deep breathing so your stomach's moving in and out, that's really where you're going to help. And we can all do that while we're hanging around waiting for the red light to turn to green, right? You can take 3 deep breaths and support that. So let's talk a little bit. I'm not going to go into a great deep science process here. I just want you to look at the structure of the skin. 90% of the skin's thickness is in the center here, this dermis. But I think what we need to focus on is in this top section here, the stratum corneum. That's the outermost piece that we're looking at. It's designed as a barrier to protect the deeper layers from water loss, causing obviously dehydration, pathogens, and irritation. So that is an important piece, but it's really interesting that that's the piece that also challenges getting product through the skin. And yet, if we're doing all this topical work, this is where we're working. So we're really only affecting the very top of our skin when we're putting products on the skin. We're not really getting down to all of the major point at where skin health really begins. This is where the skin cells start to get created as they transfer their way through the process and up and get sloughed off. This is the nursery. This is where we create the new ones. And every layer that they go through means they're older and older. I think the scary thing is that what we're looking at is this epidermis piece. It's largely dead skin cells. All right, it's not healthy skin cells or nice, lively skin cells. If you've ever done a scrub, some kind of a scrub, a sugar scrub or any kind of scrub, you know that you're really rubbing off a lot of those old dead skin cells. And so what you see below is newer, smoother ones, less crepey, less dehydrated. That's why we all love the way that that feels. But that's really all we're doing. And I want to talk about how do we get down to the hypodermis and actually change the future of every cell that's coming along, because that's really the power of real hydration and real health, skin health. So just briefly, dehydration, I'm sure we've all experienced it, right? Dry or dehydrated skin basically loses its ability to stretch. Cracking, we get peeling or accelerated dehydration. That kind of is a revolving process, unfortunately. Now, I'm sure we've all experienced that because we know that dehydrated skin can affect all types of skin. It's a temporary moment in time than what's going on, but permanently dry skin, in other words, a clearly scientifically defined dry skin is actually what we term thirsty skin that no longer has the ability to retain water effectively. Now, you might have been through phases in your life where you're putting on solutions and they just get sucked up very quickly. You're really feeling like you're not making any progress. I certainly know that I tried in my late 20s, early 30s, a product from a very well-known company that really created this state of play for me for many years. It didn't really matter what kind of topical solutions and hydrated moisturizers I could use. I could put nighttime ones on multiple times a day and they just would get sucked up, and I really thought that I was never going to have good skin again until I was able to find out how to actually change that from the inside. So what's the goal of every moisturizer that we can purchase on the planet? Right? Well, the goal is to prevent moisture leaving the surface of the skin, obviously, or to replenish it with its own water supply, depending upon what kind of materials are in your moisturizer. So moisturizers are working exclusively on that epidermis, that very top layer. So it's not going deeper down in there, right? We're really only painting over the surface of whatever's wrong. We're not changing the future of skin cells as they come along. There are 3 types of mechanisms that the market uses for moisturizers as a whole. Occlusive agents, that's the typical thing that provides a moisture barrier. If any of you have had kids, the most commonly known one would be petroleum, right? If you're putting that over them to stop them getting affected by diaper rash and things like that, that's protecting, it's creating a barrier. Humectants are kind of interesting because they're designed to actually draw from the local environment the water and attract it into your skin. But the challenge is, depending upon where you're living, particularly in this country, if you're out in somewhere very dry like Arizona, for example, this type of a moisturizer based on a humectant function wouldn't work for you because there's really not enough moisture in the air, in the environment to draw that into your skin. So that could be maybe why you've bought something that perhaps didn't work for you, because those two things weren't a mesh. Then emollients, those are the ones that we always find beautifully smooth and glossy. They always feel so wonderful, but they add hydration from the formulation. And that's designed to kind of smooth and soften the skin. I think we can sometimes think of an old brick wall where the mortar's fallen out and there are gaps in things like that. The emollients are kind of like smoothing that over and making everything look beautifully smooth and fabulous again, and you don't see any more of those cracks. Not saying that that's necessarily going to maintain that, all right, unless you keep applying it, because it isn't coming from the inside. It's still a top version. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I did put this together at one point just to give examples of actual ingredients in products that form each of these three categories. Now, some of them may be good, and some of them might not necessarily be ones that you want in your product, but I'm just letting you know that this is the kinds of terminology that you might see and the different categories that they're working on. A lot of people are very familiar with hyaluronic acid. Sodium hyaluronate is a natural version of a hyaluronic acid. So you can get hyaluronic acids, but they can be pretty stripping to the skin. And anything that includes a sodium hyaluronate is using a natural process to be a little more gentle, but with the same end goal. So there's different approaches. So let's talk about oxidative stress and skin damage. Sandy was just talking about her need to be cautious about sun damage and skin cancer. Obviously, sun damage is going to make us wrinkle up a lot more quickly, for sure. We're probably going to see people who are out in the sun looking a lot creepier than people who are not out in the sun. That's definitely where I have a friend who's an Australian. She loves to sunbathe, absolutely loves to sunbathe, but it's very evident, you know, in what's happening there. However, I will say that that is also true of people who smoke, right? There's a lot more damage that takes place to the skin if that's you. So there's a whole bunch of factors. I think for women in particular, stress is a really key thing, right? Your body is going to show it. Your face is going to show it when you're stressed out, and stress and sleep play an enormous part in maintaining good health and good skincare. But emotions, our diet, obviously the skincare products, and of course, you know, the exposure that we have nowadays to pesticides. I just went out this evening from my office and I couldn't believe that it looked like there was a fire somewhere around here. But in fact, we're actually being affected by the fires up in Canada that are coming down. And I mean, how much is that affecting people? There's a lot of people having breathing issues, let alone skin issues. But that brings with it all the pesticides that are in the air nowadays. Environmental toxins are pretty traumatic. 50 years ago, what we actually were impacted in by breathing and physically affected will actually be impacted in by 15 minutes nowadays. I mean, that's an astonishing increase in environmental toxin damage. So, you know, it's one of the reasons why we have a much harder time nowadays and have to be very diligent if we really want good health. It's not a from time to time. It's not a weekend thing. It's not a once a month or once a year. You know, it's an ongoing process to kind of think about what we want to do to avoid detrimental damage to ourselves. So what else can we think about in the mechanism behind skin health from the perspective of internal function rather than simply external? I love the little photos here of these smiling kids. They always look so wonderful. Their skin is amazing, right? And what is this whole process? Well, when we're young, our skin cell renewal is 28 days. That's why, they have all these beautiful new skin cells close to the surface, because their skin's turning over much more frequently than ours is as we age. But what's happening? So why is this changing as we get older? Why do we not look like this when we're in our 50s and 60s and 70s? It's not just simply about sun exposure, for example. I'm not really a skin sun exposure, but I certainly don't look like this in my 70s as much as it would be wonderful to look like that. So what's changing? Well, by the time we're 50, our skin cell turnover has slowed down a great deal. And that is a lot to do with what's going on. In our 30s, it's already becoming pretty significant. By the time we're 50, we can be anything between 60 to 90 days for those same skin cells to turn over that were doing that at a 28-day period when we're young. So if you think about that picture that I showed you of the skin, think about the turnover. Instead of going from bottom to top in 28 days, it's actually going possibly a 90-day process. And that is, a lot slower. It's why our skin doesn't look as glowing, right? It doesn't have that beautiful shiny look. It isn't as tight, because those skin cells that we're seeing, as we said, on the top are actually aged and dead skin cells. They're not nice, healthy ones. So where does that skin aging piece begin? Well, in fact, we have to go deeply into literally every cell. This is where skin health actually starts. It's right down at the mitochondrial level within every single cell. There is part of this Krebs cycle which produces the energy and metabolism for the human body. It's also a signaling messenger that comes out of here that has a lot to do with how to encourage our skin cells to turn over faster, not slow down to this 60 and 90-day process, even if we are aging. So what can we do about actually increasing that? Because to me, that's where we really want to start, deeper, right down in the base of every single cell. All that loss, unfortunately, is part of why we do age, not simply exteriorly, but interiorly. Everything is changing for us, and it starts back in puberty. Now, let's be truthful, right? When you're in your teens and your 20s, no one's going to be looking at your skin saying, well, actually, your aging has already started. You're still looking pretty good in your 30s. But how many of us, maybe raise a hand if you're on the screen here, how many of us noticed that by the time we hit 40, things were beginning to change, right? It didn't, even if you hadn't started to get any wrinkles, things didn't quite look like we used to in our 20s if we took those photos and compared ourselves. And that's because of this signaling messenger, this thing called redox, is actually changing and declining in puberty. That's pretty young, and I often say from a health perspective that I don't think that there's teenagers who actually are celebrating the acknowledgement that they're beginning to age as a teenager and that it's already started, but that's what's happening. And so this signaling, this ability for the cells to keep working as fast as they used to, begins to decline, and that just progresses with time, along with a lot of other things. If you aren't aware, we actually lose about 99% of our collagen by the time we're 30, certainly in the earlier parts of our 20s. There's a lot of research out there now where people are talking about collagen banking in your 20s, that's when you need to start doing work on replenishing and being proactive about maintaining collagen that early on. By the time we're 19, we've lost about 98% of our stem cells as well. So, we're on this losing wicket. And it's a wonder that we manage to look as good as we do for as long as we do in many ways, if we think of these whole mechanisms that are going on behind the scenes. Well, back in the thing we're going to talk about was that, this signaling messenger system, let's go back here. I'm going the wrong way. The signaling messenger system was always considered something you couldn't really impact in everyday life. It's just an inbuilt part of aging. But back in 2007, scientifically, a breakthrough took place where they actually were able to stabilize these signaling messengers so that you actually had a chance to do something like bio-replenish. If you're not familiar with that phrase, it's being able to put back something that your body is natively making, but making less of over time. There's actually a hormone that's directly connected to calcium called lactoferrin, for example, that is something you bio-replenish. I started working in the late 90s in the space of Dr. Narain Naidu, and he was responsible for studying and establishing lactoferrin, and actually was the result of saving our meat industry from E. coli. That's actually where that came from. But this is a hormone that helps us also build bone health, for example. So you can bio-replenish and put that back in the system. And being able to do that with redox signaling was something that was established back in 2009. I think what is interesting here is that by 2016, which is about a year before I started to use this technology, there was a report in the Huffington Post. It actually looked at 5 emerging scientific technologies that they considered over time were going to shape our future. Now, number 1, 2, 3, and 5 back in 2016 weren't even a thing. They were just a research thing. But redox signaling molecules had been stabilized back then. And so this gives us this opportunity to bio-replenish, to put back into the system something our body needs, is literally essential for cell communication and to combat aging, but is literally native to the human body. So something that the body recognizes, it's not something different, it just knows what to use. But the beautiful part about that is saying, you know what, I know that this is something that scientifically starts aging. In my teens, I know by 25 there's a measurable decline that scientists can study, but I know that by the time I'm in my 30s and 40s, I'm definitely going to be needing to do more about it unless I want to just let aging accelerate. So here we have this opportunity to actually say, you know what, I can take charge of my long-term health, and I can actually do something that kind of literally interrupts that breakdown of aging, which is really powerful. So from that development, we have what we call Renew 28. This is a pure redox-based technology. It's called Renew 28 because of clinical studies on it over 28 days. And here's the really interesting thing. We talk about how we can get deep into the cells and actually increase that skin cell renewal by 16% in just a 28-day period. So that literally is combating that loss that we talked about earlier, changing things like skin texture, skin smoothness, let me have a look here, skin elasticity, and also an improvement in cellulite. There have been a couple of different studies, both here and overseas, in highly respected laboratories who focus on skin tests for skin products worldwide. So they actually validate a lot of the products that we're going to see on the market generally in the skincare arena and give it clinical testing results. It's very unusual for them to actually give anything a 5-star rating. Most of the time that isn't something that they hand out at all. So let's have a look at what that can mean. We saw the clinical data there, but what does that look like? Well, we can see things like the crepiness. We talk about, somebody was mentioning crepiness in the skin and the arms, being able to change that, looking at the elasticity and the alteration that is so typical, under the jawline and the neckline as we age, being able to calm the skin, not simply from the outside, but working within those cells to actually calm it from the inside, as well as reducing those fine lines that we see with age. Here's an example. Again, you can see a close-up from that clinical study of aging marks around the eyes, all the fine lines, and with only 28 days of using it, you'll see a huge benefit there. This is a different kind of one. A lot of skin texture changes here for someone who's got a lot of photo damage over it. I'm not certain if they were someone who did a lot of sunbathing, but certainly, you know, a whole different person after 28 days. This was only a 2-week experience. Now, again, we talked about a lot of the markings that the young girl had at the beginning, and I would suggest that this person does have a lot of stomach issues, a lot of hormonal issues here for sure. But nevertheless, just working from the outside, you can see a dramatic difference in just a 2-week period by helping those cells to actually do the work themselves. This is really resetting cell healing in the way that the body is designed to do it. The body knows how to heal. We just need to get that system working again. And cellulite changes. This is a particular study. This one was actually 16 weeks of it, but we know that in another clinical study, we have a 16% improvement in just 28 days again. So using it not just for the face, but obviously on the largest organ anywhere in the body. And you'll see over time, the body being able to adjust and make changes to things that maybe someone's had for a long time. I was actually talking with someone this morning about one of those scars that we see as a kid, right? Any of you's ever had chickenpox, and you may have scratched yourself and got a scar, and yet, you know, people who I've helped that have been in their 40s and 50s, and yet 30 years old scars have actually gone away over time, not necessarily in 28 days, but in a period of just using the product technology for general skin health. The body has been able to make a change and replace those skin cells. And this is really more about wound healing, someone who's had a really pretty extensive, very serious operation here for a lot of cells that we would not want to have anywhere in the body, let alone the face. And you can see over time being able, without plastic surgery, to be able to help the body renew itself and look a whole lot different. And again, over time, you'll see here that with progressive use, you're going to continue to support the skin cells from the inside. That's the basis of skin health, supporting skin care. We do also have, and this is not designed for the skin specifically, a redox gold. This one came from clinical studies in looking at genetic function that actually targets inflammation, and I've started playing with this. I actually do love this product. It's not about wrinkles, but because we all have inflammation in the face and we all know that inflammation causes aging, I was kind of curious to see and thinking to myself, well, it can't lose, right? It can't hurt to do it whatsoever. I will say I love it because anyone who's used this, you'll find that it really brightens up the skin. It really tightens the skin. It's another great way of kind of helping to combat the loss of elasticity over time. So these do become a really great way of supporting the skin. This one is slightly different. It's a different species of redox, and it's still clear. Both of them are clear gels. This one actually has molecular gold in it, which does an awful lot to target and really just focus on inflammation. And you would massage this one in to get it to activate, whereas the regular one would not. Now, if you've got this to hand and you want to play around with it, if you've got your skin products with you, I know some people have actually gone ahead and purchased these so they could play with them. We want you to actually clean the skin, which if you've got the full skincare range, you're going to be able to use the redox-based cleanser. And that one is just more like a foaming cleanser. Just put it in your hands, wet yourself a little bit, wash over, and then rinse off and dry. But if you've got to that point, here's how I came up with using this, and I'll tell you the reason why. I have an esthetician that's close friends with me. She used to work for me in my spa. And she has her own practice as well, and she has a lot of clients who are of the demographic where they spend and invest a lot of money in their skincare. They will do a lot of things like the fillers and other treatments as well, but they come to her for the facial piece. She was talking to one of her clients about this in benefit for discomfort. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced discomfort, but she was explaining to her how to use this for discomfort. The client wasn't really paying too much attention, but she did hear that a goal was to use it 3 times. And it was actually being explained about how to apply it for the discomfort benefits. But she went away, she got some of it, she left the practice and she went away and she started using it, and she was using it 3 times morning and evening. Within about 2 weeks, her friends who had seen, who are of the same kind of ilk, you know, they all go to the same dermatologist and they do a lot of the same treatments, actually asked her a question, and they said, "Who did your facelift?" Right, and she hadn't had a facelift at all, but she looked entirely different as a result of it. And when I heard this story, I thought, whoa, that's really interesting. I wonder what this is like. So I started using this and working with it. Now, if you've got this, you'll find again that it's a clear gel. I want you to put like a blueberry amount on the skin. And then I want you to just apply it to the skin. You can do it all over, just sweeping up. I've got glasses on, which don't help. Let's take that off. Sweeping up, all right, using it across. Remember, this is the lymphatic drainage point of the eye. So you want to sweep up and down. Just keep sweeping and using it. Use it also under the jawline as well as right over the top of the eyes. But if you know that there is also a lymphatic drainage point down all of the neck. So if you've used gua sha, the reason that it works and helps is because it's to do with lymphatic drainage. Put your 2 fingers on either side of the jawline with the gel and brush along and then sweep down, and brush along and sweep down. You're going to be helping lymphatic drainage. And once you can begin to feel that one application begin to dry out a little bit, don't start stretching your skin. I'm only just doing it on one side for the moment. Once you can feel it start to dry, what I want you to do is take another blueberry, repeat that process over the face. As that one dries off, repeat it again, and then kind of wait 10 minutes. What you're going to see is it's remarkably tightening. It really does support and pull back the skin a lot. If you have not used redox-based technologies before, you're going to notice quite a strong pull in general, and we'll talk about the reasons why that happens. Because the skin, if you're beginning to use these technologies, you're basically rebuilding your redox signaling within the skin, and you'll probably notice literally how deficient you are, because it will feel stronger to you than any of us if we've been using it on a regular basis. You're going to begin to see that that doesn't feel quite as strong because your own internal redox levels are changing. So we have these 2 skincare approaches with redox. The gold in particular is going, as I said, the reason I wanted to use it is because I know that it's very supportive for inflammation. That's its target genetically. We're actually activating that genetic pathway, and it's going to kick up the body's innate ability to respond to any amount of inflammation within the cell. This is something called the NRF2. Think of that as like your 911 alarm bell that goes off the moment that there's any inflammation in the cell. The body naturally sends a signal out. It's basically saying, help, there's damage here and I need some healing. The body's response is through this reductant process of redox. And naturally within the cell, we send antioxidants. This is part of what the body's designed to do. Now, you may be buying antioxidant supplements to take internally. You may be purchasing products that talk about having antioxidants in them, but our cells are designed to do this very function. That is how they're supposed to keep healthy, but as we decline, we can't meet that requirement quite so much. And so what we do is we have this 280% increase in this antioxidant support at this cellular level, which is one of the reasons why I felt that there was a real benefit to using this at least once or twice a week as part of my skincare regime. You can see in thermal measurable responses here how the heat patterns are very obvious from the body when we have a lot of inflammation going on. and that the application of that is taking it down. Now, this is not an analgesic. In other words, it's not simply cooling off the skin. This is literally the science of how the cells attack the inflammation and therefore send the response to calm things down and actually help the cells to do recovery and healing. Now, if you've got anything that hurts, you're going to feel that response pretty fast. Sometimes it can be in seconds, it could be 3 minutes, but it is designed through 4 years of clinical research to actually target any kind of inflammatory response in a cell and mount this cellular healing response to it. So it's long term, it's not just short term. You can do both with it. Well, what happened was in 2022, our scientists partnered with University of Bath and also overseas in Europe and looked at creating a study in the science of redox and skin aging. We knew that we were changing things with the Renew 28, but the challenge was products in the market that do not have this, which are all products on the market, conflict with the benefits of the Renew 28. And so we would have to say to people, if you're using this, don't put any other products on your skin for a while, otherwise you're going to null and void the benefit of this. And very often what we found was the redox technology was decongesting the skin of the toxins that came from other products. And so we said, well, you know, we want to find out how can we actually do a complete look at what is this whole mechanism of redox in the skin? Can we produce something that is cohesive with the Renew 28? And this is a published study that came out in 2022. And so we're looking at skin aging and redox balance and the emergence of natural antioxidants. That helped us develop a complete range of cohesive products that support the benefit of the Renew 28 without having to be putting chemicals in the system and then trying to pull them out because of other product technologies that people were using. So if you have the cleanser, you'll find that this is a pump cleanser. You might notice on the screen that there's different levels of pink, right? Deepening colors of pink to each product. And what that is showing is that each of these products is literally targeting that redox function in the cell and building it up. And so each one becomes a stronger and stronger impact on that redox signaling messenger. That's why it gets darker as a method of us knowing which order to use the products in. So the cleanser is it's a foam-based cleanser. You can see it here. You can just mix it with a little bit of water onto the skin, rub around, and just rinse off easily. It is very creamy. You sometimes don't, if you don't want to use water to it, you don't need to. You can just rub it in as it stands and then just rinse it off with lukewarm water. Then you would actually apply the redox gel. In other words, we're cleaning the skin with something that's synergistic to that Renew 28. It's not going to feel hydrated. I'll talk about what the ingredients are in these products as we go, but it's very soothing, very hydrating. After you've used the Renew 28, you don't have to wait to use the other products because they're designed to work synergistically. So then we have a toner, and the toner, it'll tip out, so you can put a little bit into your hands, just in the hand, rub it in your hands and just pat it on. You don't have to rub it on. It's really great for men if they want that as an aftershave. One of the benefits to this one is also that it has a probiotic in it to maintain bacterial health for the skin. We have a serum, a glow serum. This one is boosting that redox signaling. Again, that's just a little gel. It's kind of hard to show them. You can see there. That one has a very smooth, silky quality to it. Again, just sweep that over. You don't need much. None of these products will you need much of. They last a long time. Just briefly sweep that over the face. And then you can add the hydrating cream, which not only is hydrating, but it actually also has some elements in there to exfoliate the skin and also to create toning and fine line compensation. This one you'll actually depress and you'll see that it pushes up. It dispenses an amount on there. You can then sweep it off with your finger and just apply it to your skin. I think this is an absolutely gorgeous product. I love that one. It's very, very hydrating and it feels so smooth. So each of those is building that redox signaling in the system and trying to help us combat that aging, that natural aging. The foaming cleanser, you'll see here the ingredients and what they support. We got this, everything is botanically based. And I don't have time to go into the science behind why each of these ingredients were chosen, although I did that in my 5-week session, because to be considered for a redox-based technology, it has to meet at least 3 out of 4 criteria. Affecting things like genetic expression is one of those key things, and the product choices had to meet those, and then we looked at about 250 different things to see how they work synergistically. So there is a lot of criteria behind what we've chosen. So this is going to hydrate and maintain the barrier, that natural barrier that we talked about at the beginning. This is going to exfoliate blemishes and dullness to the skin, and this is going to the oat kernel. As people are probably familiar with oat kernel, that one's been around for a long time, soothes and calms it, which is why it just is this very simple. There are no untoward product ingredients in here, so there's nothing that's going to be that isn't going to support natural skin health. In other words, no chemicals in there that aren't what we want. Edelweiss is a flower extract. This one is scientifically proven for redox compounds. So this protects and smooths the skin, and then we get the soothing agent to work on the skin and calm it. And then obviously here we're working on the microbiome. This is that probiotic benefit that you get for it. So it's soothing and supporting against bacterial challenges that we might have. Our glow serum has more ingredients in it. Cherimoya is a redox-based chosen product technology, and that is a fruit extract. It calms and re-energizes. We're going to even out the photo aging with the nicotina. We're going to produce, again, this is the natural version of the hyaluronic acid, right? If I mentioned at the beginning sodium hyaluronate, it's not hyaluronic acid, so that it's not over aggressive to the skin at all. It's going to actually act like a sponge, absorb negative environmental impact that we talked about. Chamomile, scientifically proven again as a redox compound and soothing. Niacinamide, which is a vitamin B extract there, which is really going to support adding cell communication. This one also has a vitamin C for the free radical damage and the UV damage, but it also supports elasticity and firmness to combat wrinkles. So that's a good reason for that one. And the last one that I mentioned, again, Cherimoya features again the hyaluronic acid version in the natural, the C-phenyl, which is supporting natural exfoliation, and then the multifunction superstar, which again is our cell communication, but also our last one here is this one has a probiotic again to support overall microbiome of the skin. Remember, we really need that as our defense against the outside. Again, with another 2 layers in there in supporting wrinkles and free radical damage. We have on our website, which I'm going to show you at the end, all of the clinical study results. This is the example from the hydrating cream. 28% improvement in roughness, 8.8% improvement of skin wrinkle depth, and this is again in the 28 days. When I had a conversation with our science department and I said, well, you know, although I've had the opportunity to do a lot of training with my own skincare employees that I had at my wellness center, that I was looking at that just as maybe you might be looking and thinking, well, 8.8 doesn't seem that much. And they said, oh, no, you have no idea. 8.8% in skin wrinkle depth is enormous in a 28-day period. So that is pretty significant. But 102% improvement of moisture after 4 weeks. And you will find that that one is very nourishing. people talking about it feeling deeply hydrating and then recommending. And again, we repeated the studies with Dermatest. Again, we got this 5-star recommendation. So we have this skincare based on redox rather than just based on what products are you sticking on the outside of your skin. We're literally at how are we working within the redox signaling realm, which is where skin aging changes from that scientifically published study, and how are we also really pumping and increasing our redox potential there with the Renew 28 to support the signaling within the cell level. Now, at the beginning, I talked about how do we get to the hypodermis, right? Because the typical products you're going to see are only going to work on the skin surface at the epidermis level. This actually goes to the hypodermis. We're actually changing the future skin cells for much healthier replications. And so that's why you see these long-term benefits. It impacts you short term, but you will really see that as you continue to be on this, you're going to notice that if you're taking photos of yourself, we've got so many photos of people who 5 to 10 years later look entirely different than they did when they first started on this technology. And that's because we're going deep, deep, deep in where skin cells are actually being created in the first place. One of the other things you can do, of course, as we talked about the loss of collagen, this is our vegan collagen. We did a lot of studies. Again, I'm not going to go deep into this. I did a whole session literally on all the collagen on the market, looking at the mechanisms behind collagen, what you do and don't want, what will and won't get there. This one is a vegan one. Why is it vegan? Because the first part of the breakdown of amino acid complexes that come from bovine or animal products is over 50% of the work that has to happen before the body can even start to take those ingredients and rebuild for collagen for us that's usable. And most of that is not very absorbable. So we said, you know what, let's cut to the chase. Let's cut that whole process in half. Let's go to the formulation, the amino acid formulation. In other words, what is the structure of the amino acid formulation that the body uses to now build the bricks for the collagen? And one significant difference that you would find with this, whereas what's on the market might target type 1 collagen, type 2 collagen, type 4 collagen. It'll be a specific type of collagen that they're aiming for. When you have just the amino acid formulation, it's like having all the bricks needed to build any type of collagen that your body wants. And so although we talk about this as skin, hair, and nails, what I've seen is people who have Ehlers-Danlos challenges, connective tissues, issues, things that are nothing to do with what might be on the label. It's because the body is using those bricks and it's making what the body wants. And so this one is a beautiful vegetarian, vegan version, and it tastes amazing. It's a dragon fruit flavor. You can put it into water there and drink it once a day, and it is very, very popular. But that is a great way to combat that loss of collagen that's starting in our 20s and certainly is extremely depleted by the time we're 30. And you can see examples here of this. I know that Sandy's actually on this call, and these are her personal examples. In just 19 days, you can see changes in that skin, the hair growth that's coming pretty quickly in that period of time. And we had our own Dr. Silverman, who's also on the medical board with me, who was doing his own studies. And over a 2-month period, you can see changes in these fine lines around the eyes. At the front here on both sides. And so I would recommend for people, if you're wanting to look at how do you actually get to the root of what's going on, as opposed to just putting on topicals that are really not doing much more than covering the surface. They're not going down to the hypodermis. They're not addressing any of the innate signaling scientifically that we know changes aging, that we can accelerate that skin cell turnover, can help us keep ahead of the curve, then this would be my kind of suggestion. For me, if nothing else, just doing the Renew 28 and the Redox Gold would be a foundational way to do that. You only need to apply this morning and evening if you're just doing it to your face. Obviously, if you want to do it all over your body, it's great to do after you come out of the shower. The muscles feel very alert and awake when you use it. I mean, because everything is communicating so much better, but it can just be simply your facial go-to. All right, remember the neck and the décolleté, all of those things become important too, but just one simple application. Just wait 5 minutes if you're not going to be using the rest of the skincare, and away you go with your own skincare from there on. And I would use the Redox Gold at least twice a week to combat natural inflammation. You can use it more than that if you want to, but certainly at least twice a week would be a great way to do it. Otherwise, I would suggest do the complete skincare line. Do the Renew 28 with the other 4 pieces, and do the whole comprehensive approach from each layer in terms of supporting your build-up of redox in your skin. Now, we do sell it as a starter kit where you can get all 4 as one, and it is cheaper, but it's going to last you anything from probably around up to 3 months anyway. And then at some point you can come back and just purchase each one individually. So if you were going through more of the, I don't really know what you'd go through more of, maybe the hydrating cream, if you were going through that a little bit quicker, you could just come back and replace that when you ran out of it. But honestly, I mean, the rest of them take ages to go through, and they're incredibly reasonable, especially when you compare them with what's on the market. Phenomenal. So Maureen's saying Renew 28 is great on scar tissue. Have you ever had any surgery? Recent, yes, or even years ago, absolutely. And then the collagen with the skin cells. So that would be the kind of approach of like essentials, an enhanced approach to things, and a complete approach. But for those of us on the call, and many of you I know are using this, even if you've invited other people to learn about it, you may want to just say me in the chat, because if you really want to get to the skin health from the inside, it would be doing the liquid. And so this was the breakthrough technology in 2007, being able to stabilize the same signals that we have within our skin. And so you're going to really be supporting the skin from the inside out as well as the outside in, not just doing the whole thing. For me, I would look at maybe a suggestion would be, 1 tube of Renew a month, 1 Radiance, and maybe a couple of bottles of that could be a great kind of ongoing skin health program for you. And then, you adjust it according to whatever you're using on a regular basis. But certainly, we got some amazing examples of skin health. And for those of you who want to know more, there's a great website called discoverredox.com. You can go on there. This is one of the pages on the skincare itself. You can look on and learn about the ingredients, about the studies, the Renew 28 photo gallery from all our testing that we've done. So there's a lot of information from you there. I'm going to stop the share for the moment because I think we may have some people, if there's anyone who's using the products, that would love to kind of, give us a thought about what's your favorite product. I'll let you be happy to unmute and maybe just tell us what your favorite product is and why. Do you put the Renew 28 first and then the Gold, Sean? I'll just kind of go through these questions before anybody thinks about what they want to. Dagger's round the mouth. Yes, I would probably use the Renew 28. There's different theories on this for sure. The Gold you will have to rub in and you massage that because it actually activates the redox, and you would wait till that dries off and then you could just apply the coat of Renew and just let it go. You don't rub this one in. And so my theory, and I'll tell you my theory is only because I've seen this, right, and I know that those of you who are working with the technology would know this, when people have got sore hands, and right? And they take this and they rub it on that hand, and then they find that this one gets a benefit, right? Because they've been rubbing with one hand. So my theory is I want to touch this one as little as possible because I want all the benefit where it's going, not on the other limb as well. So my theory would be rub this in until it's dried out, more or less. It doesn't have to be completely dry. And then you can just take one quick swipe of the other one and you're away and you're done. Sandy, you want to go ahead? Thank you for letting us share your photos as well, and your hair looks even thicker.
I kind of forgot I'm the poster child for the radiance, but yeah, that was amazing. I still use that every day. So I think sometimes you just kind of take for granted what this can do. And so my routine is in the morning when I'm kind of getting ready, I pretty much give my arms, my face, and my chest a bath in Renew 28. I just kind of do, especially as we get older, that crepey skin. So I do top and bottom, face, neck, chest area, belly button, kind of just do a quick cover. And then my evening routine is more the complete skincare system because I don't do it twice a day. In the morning, I'll probably do the serum and the hydrating cream. But in the evening, I remember hearing when they first launched this product, and the woman who helped formulate this talked about, at night your skin is taking on all these toxins throughout the day, and you don't really want to go to bed with all those toxins on your skin. And so I do the 4-step routine at night with the cleanser, the toner, the serum, and the hydrating cream, and then in between there use I guess the advanced serum that we used to have. I still have a couple tubes of that. So that's the intense serum. And that's kind of my routine. And then at night I drink a bottle with the Redox Radiance. So my thinking on that is that our body regenerates and recovers during sleep. So to me it's like I'm giving my body that collagen support as I'm sleeping. So I take that in the evening. But that's kind of my routine. But if you don't have, it's like out of sight, out of mind. I keep this on my cabinet, on my bathroom cabinet, and on my kitchen table. So in the morning, I'm using it in the morning, I'm using it at night. Just get it on you. So that's kind of my routine. I love the products.
Yeah, for sure. You reminded me about a couple of things. With the Radiance, the one thing to remember is because this is an amino acid profile, that's the one thing you don't want to eat around this, because if you're eating protein, that's a different formulation, and so that would kind of change it. So I would do this on an empty stomach, which might be 45 minutes before you eat anything. So if you've eaten earlier in the evening and then you're going to bed a couple of hours later, that would be a good thing to do for sure. There was something else I said and I can't remember what. Oh, I know, you were mentioning the intensive serum. We're reformulating that. We're constantly analyzing our science, and so we're reformulating that for stability is really important. We do massive amounts of testing. We are a research and development company in the field of redox, so there's millions of researches going on. And the other one that we haven't mentioned that will come out that I love, which I'm not talking, is the mask, is the redox clay mask. That one is amazing, but we are actually, because of the production restrictions around that, we're actually producing that in periods of time during the year. We've had one batch run. I would imagine that Christmas will be the next time but keep an eye out for that one, because that one's amazing. Bug bites, I mean, it drives the redox deeper. I mean, lots of nodding going on there for sure. But
I forgot about the mask, but I still have some of that in stock. I stocked up when we
exactly. I know.
So I use that a couple times a week. So.
And Sean Burke, our Ironman athlete, would use this for deeply and pushing the redox even deeper into the muscles. So interesting. But I know what I was going to say to you was that you just reminded me that when we're taking any nutritional supplements or whatsoever, even our food, if we do the liquid 15 minutes before we consume nutrition, right, it primes that pump, that redox sensitive cell function to actually absorb nutrition better. So all of your nutrition or your supplements will work better if you do that. Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to just underscore some of the things that Sandy said in terms of where I use my system, but I also include the lymphatic drainage piece where I go under my arms on either side of my neck, my groin area. I'll usually do that at night after I get out of the shower. And I think that's another really effective use of the Renew 28.
Yeah.
And don't sleep on the first aid piece of this, for bug bites and things. And I had a bee sting out with my grandchildren one day, and it was about to collapse the whole afternoon until my husband took it out of his bag. He was carrying it, which, kudos to him. And I put it on the bee sting and 3 times, and I was good to go.
Yeah, right.
So, it's
Yeah.
it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to have on you all the time.
Yeah, I mean, those of us who are using on a regular basis know you throw out all the over-the-counter stuff, right? Whether it's for cuts, bruises, bug bites, rashes, you name it. It's good because that's how the cell is designed to function and to heal. So all we're doing is kickstarting the cell's innate capacity to do the work it needs to do. Yeah, that's a beautiful thought for that. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Well, so we have, yeah, Glenda, were you going to say anything?
Yes, I was. I also practically take a bath in Renew 28 every morning. I put it all the same places that Sandy was talking about and more. Um, but after about 2 months, and I didn't take a picture before I started using the Renew 28 on my face. Um, but I wish I had, because after 2 months, I thought I looked younger, and it was I mean, all these friends keep telling me, you look younger, your skin looks great. And I just started using the whole skincare line, which I love. Um, I've been using it for less than a month, just only a few weeks, but I absolutely love that. And people comment on my skin. A friend is also using it, and we compare skin at church every Sunday. We stand and, oh, your skin looks great. Your skin looks great. So I love I love all these products.
Well, that's wonderful. And you've had a remarkable health journey, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I mean, pretty dramatic enough that your doctors wanted to know what you were doing.
Well, I asked him if he'd ever heard of redox, and he said, "How do you spell that?"
Oh, well, there you go. That's a beautiful one. I had a conversation with 3 medical professionals at Martha Jefferson, our local hospital, only yesterday, and not one of them knew anything about redox. I mean, and not even the term redox. I mean, it wasn't even about anything to do with what we're talking about today, but just the term redox, and it is quite astounding, even though there are 6 Nobel Prizes in this field. That
Yeah.
if they've not graduated post 2008, they don't have any training in the function of redox biology itself, even though there are millions and millions and millions of studies, and we know how much work is being researched worldwide on this field, because it's so important. Just want to come back. I will come to Stella for a second. Sean, you just reminded me. I was going to say, for those of you not, I'll find it and post it again. Although I think it's in the Redox Facebook group. I created a slide, a chart on a complete lymphatic use of the redox so that you can actually look through all those pathways that you can do on a regular basis. Someone was asking about, I just mentioned using the redox 28 3 times a week. No, actually what I was using was they did three applications of it was how it was being beneficial to that person. And instead of doing, because anyone who knows that now will work for the discomfort level with this, because it hits the EGR1 genetic pathway for discomfort instantaneously after 4 years of research. But everybody else knows that from 2014 to last year, we were using this for discomfort, and that would be 3 times in 5 minutes. And that's where that confusion came with my friend who's a esthetician and her client who wasn't listening about it was for discomfort. She was telling her about it, and she went away and she would apply it 3 times every night and 3 times every morning. And then within 2 weeks, her friends wanted to know which surgeon she'd been to. Right. So that was why I was saying you can get that benefit. You don't, I mean, every one of us who uses this will use this morning and evening as a one coat session, right? Wash your face, apply it, and then move on from there. But yeah, you can certainly do 3 times and do some extra work on the weekends or something like that. We all pay money to go to spas. Do your own spa at home, right? Stella, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I did. Yeah, so I use the same way, Renew 28, just on my face and other parts of the body. I had someone comment and say, "You are aging backwards." I'm like,
Yes.
"Yay." And then I have a friend who went to have her skin tags removed by a surgical tool, and they were painful. So she was jumping all over the place. And she remembered, I have my Redox Gold. And she's like, she applied it, and literally in seconds, the guy was like, "Wait a minute, what's that thing? It works really quick." So it is true that the gold is amazing.
Yeah, well, that's thanks to Western Australia University and Bath University in England. I mean, that's 4 years of research in helping us work out why we knew that genetically the liquid impacts genetic pathways on 100% of people on a double-blind placebo study. That had a 20 to 31% improvement for everybody using it over an 8-week period. And so that affected things like immune signaling, cardiovascular health, digestive enzyme production, hormone signaling, and the inflammatory genetic pathway. And so that is where we pivoted and we said, well, if the liquid, which we think of as broad spectrum, and the gel, which is the same, but just with a stabilized version of a silica clay, so it supports the liquid, if they hit all cells, and one of those pathways are inflammation, can we find a way to actually laser the impact just to hit inflammation? And that was what the gold is all about. So if you've been using it or you haven't used it, it's remarkably fast. It's fast because it hits that pathway, but repeatedly it will teach recovery at a cellular level. So it's actually helping the body do the recovery so that you wouldn't necessarily need it all the time by any means. You know, once your body's recovered, it's really kind of for a topical benefit for sure. Frank, you've got your hand up. Nice to have a guy. It's always a woman's thing, right? When we off that hay bed.
Yeah, the one and only.
Hope not.
Yeah, well, listen. So, as you know, I've been using this twice a day on my face, sometimes 3 times. I sent you a picture. It definitely does what you explained, but also the gold, I put that on before hockey and sometimes after hockey. And it's very fast acting for muscle, let's say, it's almost like loosening up on the front end, but taking the lactic acid buildup, the fatigue out on the back end is I know that for sure because I do it a lot. So
Yeah.
I would encourage other men to be using it for all the things that you went through today, and also keep this at all times. At all times.
Yeah.
It is a first aid kit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely it is. My bag is full with multiple bottles of this stuff. Sometimes it's like, how many are in here? But that's true. And Frank is an ice hockey athlete. So he plays rigorously multiple times in the week, and 70, and you're playing with people, 30 years younger than you, I think sometimes, right? Or maybe.
They range from my kid's age to right. I have 1 or 2 other people my age that have a history because I played back in college. So
yeah, right.
Yep.
And we know from the reason we have so many Olympic athletes on the product is because we've done so many studies at Appalachian Human Performance Labs down in North Carolina. You get a 29% faster recovery and endurance from using the liquid, and that is even without exercise. The studies they saw made changes in 7 days before they even got to the actual exercise point. It was really interesting. There are like 56 different metabolites that shift. We go into fatty acid burning instead of sugar burning, so you're protecting muscle glycogen. So if you're somebody who exercises, you'll know the benefits of that. But we also have a 12% faster VO2 uptake. VO2 max is really important for people. So there's lots and lots of benefits from that. I always say every week, you don't need to be an Olympic athlete to benefit from this, but regardless of whatever you're doing, it's going to help. Dorcas, did you want to say something? I know you were waving at me. Can you unmute?
Can you unmute? Okay. All right. Thanks, Carolyn. It's Lori has a question.
Yes, I do. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Lori,
question from the floor.
I have 2 questions. The first one was when you were talking about the skincare products. I know you said to cleanse, but then you're saying put that Renew 28 on and then the toner? I was kind of confused about that.
Yeah, that's actually, and we came up with this in the end because I was part of the test group, and when we launched it a few years ago, we were working, and then we were back forth over which rhythm do we use, and they came up with 1, 2, renew as a reminder.
Okay, and then the other question is, my girlfriend that's not here tonight, she's got chronic, she has nerve damage, numbness in her cheek and her lip from a wisdom tooth being removed. It's a 10-year chronic damage, and I've been trying to get her to try this. Will topical do it, or does she need to do
Renew 28?
I think the liquid as well. I mean, I'm just wanting to know.
Yeah, I mean, the liquid certainly could help, but you know what I would be doing on the outside? I definitely do the gold.
But,
and the reason I'll tell you is because when we launched it back in January of last year, I went from the launch to Vegas to work with a whole bunch of people on this, and we had no personal experience, you know, in the field and what this would do. And I had a guy with me there that I didn't know, but he came to an event we did. He'd had very severe issues with his feet. Same kind of thing, right? Tremendous numbness, tremendous discomfort. This man couldn't stand still for a second while we were talking, and I was trying to work with him on it, and he was literally shifting from foot to foot to foot to foot. We applied this, and we were building up like a catalog of how quickly different people responded, because everyone's individual, so it will be different. It's not uniform for everyone. Some people can see things very quickly. People have to do this a couple of times and then do this once, and that's because this hits everything. This only hits the EGR1 genetic pathway, but together, sometimes they lock together and they cover the whole thing. But I put this on him, and we had someone who was doing timing. They were timing everybody's responses to see what the differences were. And I will tell you, in 58 seconds, he was out of discomfort with this.
Wow. So are you saying use that and then the Renew 28?
So I would do this. She's in a lot of numbness and discomfort.
Yes.
A lot of this, yes. But you can use this inside the mouth.
That's what I've done that. I have done that.
I brush my teeth.
Don't put this inside because of the molecular gold. Clinically, this one's studied for the impact of gold on skin and absorption and all those things. Clinically, we study it safe on the outside. And that's not to say it's dangerous, but it's not designed to go on the inside. So we don't put this in the ear. We wouldn't put this inside the mouth. But everybody who gets to know this knows that people brush their teeth with this, right? Rub it on.
That's what she did. I'm going to start doing it.
I mean, this one is safe. It's not designed to be ingested, but there's nothing in it that's going to cause a problem. My cat eats it, right? Because we all know, right? Animals are healthy because of redox. They're alive because of redox. And so my cat would present herself, and she didn't want to drink the drink. Some animals will drink it, but I would just stick it on my finger, and she'd lick it off, and she'd keep licking it off until she'd had enough, and she'd walk away when she was done. So yeah, you can brush it.
So the gold would be your best bet. And I've had clients who've actually used the gold on their face, and they said it's helped their scars and their age spots, everything quicker than the Renew 28, unless I'm mistaken.
Well, it has. I had a spot on my nose.
I don't think it's so much about being mistaken. It simply reflects the fact that different things are going to work on different people, because it's different pathways that person needed, and this hit those, right? And this will hit those. But it's milder because it's affecting everything as well as the inflammatory piece. So think of it as like a piano keyboard. This plays all the notes, but it plays all the notes with a little bit, so to speak, whereas this only says, I'm going to play the inflammatory chord and I'm going to hammer on that chord. So it's working on that, and that person obviously needed that, and it kicked in some healing for her. Whereas for somebody else, it might be this one that they need because maybe there's some other notes that need to be played.
So it actually can regenerate that the nerves that have been.
Well, it's not about it. Right.
No.
Remember, the body's doing the healing.
Right. Oh, yes, I know that. Okay.
Yeah, the body is doing the healing.
Right.
So it's just,
Okay.
that's why it's a little bit of a it's not as cookie cutter as a lot of things on the market where everybody takes exactly the same amount. It's not like that because it's really precision wellness. And so in some ways we need to be willing to play around a little bit sometimes and see what works specifically for us in that circumstance. Cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You asked Carolyn about the product we like the best. Renew
Oh, yeah.
28. This is Dorcas. I use it twice a day. I use it twice a day, all over, morning and night. And my skin is so soft now, like it's never been. And I've lived in Key West for 27 years and, you know, still in Florida. So 30 years in Florida sun.
Oh, wow.
And it's softer than it's ever been, like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
I was just going to add,
Vicky
Carolyn.
had a question in there about red light therapy. So red light therapy activates the mitochondria. It certainly will help. I would do them as separate times because if you put too much of the same mechanism at the body, it doesn't always want that, and too much isn't necessarily a good thing. So for the benefit, I would probably do them at a different time of when you're using your skincare. That would be my thought about that one. Having one right now, using the liquid. Okay. When are they going to, Vicky's asking when they're going to bring back the intensive serum. They're still doing research on that. Their formula, it will be upgraded. It's about stabilization. The other one worked. What we found was, though, that the redox stabilization wasn't as good as we wanted it to be, because we're always pulling products back from overseas and checking, you know, is it still stable? We've sent it somewhere. Does it change in that traveling time or that storage time? And it wasn't as stable as we wanted it to be. So they're reformulating. I don't know when that's going to be ready. I'll let you know as soon as I can when I hear something. Using Renee, fixing lip peeling daily for decades. I love it. Wonderful. Maureen, thank you for all the comments. About Anne-Marie, about how long. I know there are many factors. Well, that's like asking how long's a piece of string, right? Because ultimately, Anne-Marie, it's all about you. Right, so your body has to do the healing. This is activating and supporting. It's like bringing some troops into the house. We can get our job done a little quicker. So sometimes the drinking and super saturating is the benefit. The internal is getting more on board that way. Think of these as fire extinguishers. You can put them right where you want them, right? Whereas the liquid is going to work everywhere, and we can't guarantee that we're going to direct it exactly where we want it, because the body will do its own internal inventory of what's most important for you. And so you may have one thing in mind, but your body may know naturally that there's something else that's much more important that it needs to focus on. And that's the frustrating thing in sometimes, because our body's doing the work with these materials. And so it's really the same with any of it. You know, everybody's version is going to be different. Friend who had a scar tissue and extreme discomfort for 35 years had change in her symptoms within 5 minutes, right? And that's what we, you know, and I will simply tell you, you know, it's really kind of interesting, because when I first started using this product, I had a client who couldn't come to me because she'd fallen over. She was in her early 80s, but she'd fallen over on the ice in the winter, and she had this massive fracture of her femur. She had 19 pins in her leg. And she was on a lot of oxycodone and all sorts of things like that. She was on a walker. She really couldn't get out of bed very much. She was in a huge amount of pain. And I was super excited with Renew 28. This is 2017. It's like, okay, I've got the solution here. We're going to get you out of discomfort. And Dr. Silverman was in town at the time. We went over to see her, and I went through the 3 times in 5 minutes. She was a level 10 pain. We went through the 3 times in 5 minutes, waited the 5 minutes, nothing, didn't shift a thing. So I was like, okay, you know, this is just, it needs a bit more. We applied it all again, waited another 5 minutes, nothing, didn't shift a thing. Applied it all again. I must have gone through at least a half a tube of the stuff, and you know, in about 20 minutes, not a thing changed. So how many of you would feel like totally deflated if this is right at the beginning of your journey, right? And I was so frustrated. But we sat, she did get out of bed, and we kind of trundled into her sitting room. We sat and we talked for probably about 20 more minutes. And we said, okay, well, we're going to get going. And she got up and she starts moving across the room, much quicker, right, as she was going to see us out. And I went, hang on, stop a minute. I said, you're moving differently. I said, what's changed? I said, where's your pain level now? I said, you know where. She knew exactly where it hurt, and she knew what her pain level. I said, poke around. I said, where? And so she's prodding and poking, and it had gone to a 0, but it had taken 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Right. So a lot of us will give up because we think it doesn't work. It doesn't work, but it's us that's doing the work. And she just needed to go through it. We didn't have the gold in those days. May have been a different story much quicker. But just to let you know, it clinically cannot not work because this is chemistry. Right? Those signals have to go to work immediately. But does that mean our body can make the healing that makes us see the change? Not necessarily, because we have to do the work on the healing, and there may still be some factors in there that perhaps aren't present. Maybe that's more nutritional because it partners with it. And I would suggest for a lot of people, I'm beginning to move to the notion that, in fact, when people start this, it's probably good to have them on an omega, have them on our omega, because it makes the cell membranes more receptive. And it may well be that for some people who take longer to see this impact, if they had that omega in place, it would happen. They would see that change quicker. So I think there are things that we can definitely do to kind of support this, but realizing it's all still about our body and trying to find that switch that helps it get moving. And that can be a little bit frustrating at times.
I was also going to mention and piggyback on what Sean had said about addressing more the lymphatic system, Carolyn. I also had heard earlier this week from one of the Ask the Doctor incidents to actually put the gel in our belly buttons too, because there's 70,000 nerve endings there, and that gives me great hope that I'm going to flourish faster. Also,
thank you for reminding me. I was going to talk about that when somebody else was talking about belly button. That yes, you really, because that is like the major central. That's where we're connected as children with our parents, right? And that is like a major point of communication for the body.
I also rubbed it down all of the back of my spine today too, just and up to, because I have a traumatic brain injury up at my brainstem, but I went down my entire my entire skeleton. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to show is I have both of these. Carolyn gifted this to my upline, Debbie and Frank, and they gifted it to me, one of these, which is a travel pack. And since if we're smart, we're going to get on the airplane and go to the North American conference, and this would be great to have in your purse or your backpack. And then I also have a larger one, and these are really great for misting, in our orifices and keeping it and using on our animals. My cat loves to come bunt against me, and I do this to his ears and put the gels on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, down the spine, the whole of the spine, right, because every nerve ending comes out from each vertebrae. So you're impacting every organ when you do it down the whole spine. And here's the other thing. I had someone say to me the other day, well, I can't get to this bit or that bit, right, when I'm on my own. Don't worry about it, right? Just do it at the top. And do it right at the base in the sacrum, because it communicates up and down, or maybe just touch a bit in the middle where you can get to. You don't have to do the whole thing because it's going to signal between those 2 points. So you can still impact the whole of the spine that way. But yeah, or if you can't get to your spine, do it on the soles of the feet, because that's the reflexology representation of the whole body. All right, do it around the ears. That's the same thing. Right, so there are parts of the body that you can get to. Yeah, Maureen, were you trying to say something else? You're not on mute. You're on mute.
Unfortunately, one of the people that I invited, she just got her ASEA 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, and she has what we call with the C. I'm not going to share the diagnosis, but I had encouraged her. She has that and an itis. And I encourage that to put the Renew all over her tummy to also activate everything there. And then
then apply the gold, and to be drinking a minimum of 8 to 12 ounces of this just to giddy up because of her age.
Yeah.
At the start. So
it's true. I mean, it really is the two things is time. And as we know, that 120-day study now shows that we have that 89% reduction in inflammation at between day 60 and 120. And I think it has a lot to do with why in the past when we said do it for 90 days, there's still a lot more that takes place between 90 and 120. And I think that's why very often people who stayed on it longer would suddenly see other bigger things happen in the fourth month and not in the third. This kind of reflects all of that for sure. But just, super saturate. And if you're, whatever your age you are, it doesn't hurt to have a spa health weekend. It's still a lot cheaper than going to see anybody else, right? Drink a half a bottle on a Saturday and half a bottle on a Sunday. It's not going to cost you as much as going to have a massage, for heaven's sake, right? But it's going to do something for every cell in the body. So there's those moments that you can boost things and then watch what happens. It's and the great thing is you have control and it's non-toxic, right? So that's the cool piece about this. Amy, if you go to Amazon and you put in Nano Mister, you'll see lots of different versions of them. I tend to look for the ones that have the better ratings. They're all slightly different prices. They're not that, they're all kind of around $11 and under. Some of them $5, $6, just depends. Some are a little better than others, but none of them are that expensive. And you just put a little bit down, put a lot in there, because once you open this, once it's open to the air, it's better in these because they're designed to protect it and they have coatings on the inside to keep the molecules stable. When we put it into other things and other plastic, that's not quite the same. So just put a little bit in there and use it up and then refill it. Don't put tons in there because it'll start to denature and then you're kind of wasting it other than drink it.
may I add one more thing about the mister?
Yeah.
I did an experiment today. I had my cut roses from 2 weeks ago doing this, and I sprayed it and it's back erect. So the misting with the redox on our cut plants in our houses, on our flowers is just a beautiful thing.
I know. I did it when we had some landscaping done, and I wanted them to take up a whole bunch of flowers because we were moving them to the other house, and they just kind of roughly grabbed all these things, and I had all these daffodils everywhere, and they sat on the front step in the heat, and I took them in, and there was one that looked completely collapsed. I was like, okay, I'll stick you in a little dose of redox on its own, and I took a photograph, and then upright. It's just amazing to watch. It's so much fun. Absolutely. All right.
Excuse me. I have.
Yes, sorry, Catherine. Yes.
Okay. Like what I do, like in the evening, because usually during the day maybe I may have makeup, so I usually use the foam. Then I put the toner on a cotton ball, and then clean my face because I find I'll have a lot of still makeup on the cotton ball.
Yes. Okay.
So, and then I use the Renew 28 in the evening. So is that okay?
I think that's perfectly fine. That's the way I was doing it in the beginning. I know they said somebody came up with 1-2 Renew, but to me it's like cleanse, tone, then we'll stick the Renew on, and then I use the other two afterwards. Yeah. Absolutely. And as I think some people will do shorter routines in the morning. You haven't got time for all 4 or 5 steps, just cleanse it and stick your Renew and stick on your hydrating cream and off you go. And maybe do the other ones in the evening, which is why you're varied in how quickly you'll go through the product and how much longer they'll last for you, for sure. Yeah, well, cool. Well, I appreciate everybody. It is already 8:30. I appreciate the time that you've spent here this evening, and I hope that if you've not known anything about this, that you've learned something that's useful to you. If you want to know more, there's lots of resources that we can give you. Come tomorrow morning. At 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Dr. Silverman will be doing a quick review of safety, usage, expectations, and then he'll also answer any Q&A. And we have 4 opportunities a week for people to get in front of doctors and actually ask questions. So if you're wanting somebody else to learn about this and you don't even know how to talk about it, don't worry about that. Just ask them to come watch one of the presentations. They can ask their own questions, and you can certainly help them on their journey. But we appreciate you all. all, get back with the person that invited you. It's really nice of them to have done that. And if you want to start your internal and external health journey as opposed to just a skincare program, I would certainly encourage this. But anyway, thanks very much, everybody. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Carolyn.
much, Catherine.
Bye.
Bye.
Carolyn.